Just a reminder, this is not financial advice. This is not legal advice. Do your own research. I'm never going to reach out to you either in the comment section or through any other means to try to get you to invest in something that I'm investing in or to send me crypto. Some links underneath the video are affiliate links. I may earn a commission, but this is at no extra cost to you. Of course, do your own due diligence. I had a family member just ask me what my Bitcoin exit strategy is, saying that if you're going to get into a trade, you need to know when to get in and when to get out. I had an answer for him, which is that I am not going to sell out of Bitcoin, to be clear. I plan on accumulating more. And I realize a lot of people are bearish right now. A lot of people are saying that we're going into a bear market. I personally think that we're not still. I think there's a slightly better chance that we go into a bull run than a bear market right now. But I want to tell you what I'll do if we go into a bear market. So to be clear, I'm not bearish. I do think we could see a little bit more downside. We have a CME gap at 92,000, but people are very fearful right now, and I'll show you some of the stats behind it. There are some bottom markers right now, so we'll go through that. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do with Bitcoin, what I'm going to do with leverage, what I'm going to do with altcoins, what I'm going to be doing with other assets as well. If you don't mind though, before we get started, just check out the link underneath the video to my Telegram, just in case I get banned on YouTube. That has happened a lot recently with crypto creators, and that's happened with me recently too. So check out the Telegram underneath the video. Also, we just got done with this event for BYDeFi where you can trade and get up to $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. If you want to be trading for the next one of these, we're going to probably start another one in a couple weeks. You can check out the link to BYDeFi in the link tree. It's the second one down. So you can start trading, get used to the platform, and then you can get up to $10,000 just for trading on the platform. So we're going to do more of these in the future. You might as well sign up now. Now, Bitcoin is under 100,000, right? We're right below the 50-week moving average, which has historically kind of marked a bottom this bull market. So some people are very bearish on the market right now, saying that we are headed into another bear market, especially when you look at like just the cycle tops in the past. They've always been in this fourth quarter, and then we go down for about a year until we hit bottom, and then we recover for a couple of years, right? And then, or a year and a half, usually hit new all-time highs about 2 years after we bottom. Now, it says a lot of people bearish, saying that they're just going to cut their losses. They're getting off crypto forever. This is the worst bull market ever. And yeah, there's just a lot of bearishness. You can see the crypto fear and greed index down significantly. Like we're hitting 10s. Now, this has always been a pretty decent time to invest in Bitcoin if we had a 10 on the fear and greed index. Now, it doesn't always mark an exact bottom. Sometimes we have this for a while, right? Like in 2022, 2021, we had some days where we hit 10 on the fear and greed, like in the summer. If you remember, we went from 64K down to 30K or so when there's the China exodus. And then we went back to greed. But, you know, we can kind of float around 10 or a little bit lower even for a couple months. But typically, this is a good time to be buying. You can see back in February of 2025, we had a fear and greed index of 10. So again, it doesn't always mark the exact bottom, but it's typically a good time to be buying. We also have Michael Saylor saying that he's going to buy some Bitcoin, that they're actually accelerating their buys. Mr. 100's buying. We had a death cross, which also is typically pretty bullish. Usually these mark the bottoms. Benjamin Cohen says, Bitcoin had death cross today. Note that prior death crosses marked local lows in the market. Of course, when the cycle is over, the death cross rally fails. The time for Bitcoin to bounce, if this cycle is not over, would be starting within the next week. If no bounce occurs within 1 week, probably another dump before a larger rally back to the 200-day simple moving average, which would then mark a macro lower high. Trade the market you have, not the market you want. Okay, so this got me thinking, along with, my family member kind of asking when I'm going to cut my losses on Bitcoin throughout this bull run. It got me thinking about my bear market strategy. And I think the first thing you need to know, this is not financial advice. I already rolled the disclaimer at the beginning, but I don't know the future, right? So this is just what I'm going to do with the portfolio I have and the risk tolerance I have and the knowledge I have. So it's going to be different for everyone. Also, I think you want to be dynamic because no one knows what the future holds, right? If all of a sudden BlackRock and Fidelity turn very bearish on Bitcoin, it might change your investing decisions moving forward. Or if all of a sudden the US says that they're going to actually buy Bitcoin, like you have to continue to receive news and information to make informed decisions. So my plan is not like word for word I'm going to follow it. It's a general framework. Now, I'll show you. I'll start with Bitcoin here. What am I doing now? And then what will I do in the future? So right now, for the last year and a half, I hadn't bought anything. Basically, since the halving, when we were around $60,000, I stopped buying Bitcoin. But just over the last couple months, I started dollar cost average again. A very small part of my portfolio. It was actually near the tops. Now, I don't feel bad about that. I realized that could be the top, and that's why I wanted to start dollar cost averaging, because I just have a very small portion. Not enough to even really move the needle for me or for my Bitcoin stack, but it's enough to get me realizing that I'm buying Bitcoin. I'm accumulating Bitcoin slow and steady. I'm not trying to time the market. This is what I do with the majority of my portfolio. Right? The majority of my crypto portfolio is in spot or Bitcoin ETFs, right? 90% plus of my crypto portfolio is in Bitcoin. And that's been the case since last bull market. I sold a lot of my altcoins like right at the start of the bear market, like when we were going down. I sold a lot of them into Bitcoin, which has turned out to be a good decision because Bitcoin dominance is way up over the last 3 years. Now, what will I do moving forward? Let's say we go down, right? How far could we go down, first of all, and then what will I do? Well, previous bear market, we actually fell down pretty significantly. You can see we went about 77% from the very peak to the very bottom. Now, we also went up significantly throughout the bull market. We went from a previous peak of about 19,000 up about 3.6x, 260%. Now, this bull market has been much more muted, 85%, right? From peak to peak. Now, if you dollar cost average, you would have made a lot more. That's what we did. But this leads me to believe that unless we see something terrible happening with macro, if we go into a bear market, or when we go into a bear market, we won't see the same kind of drawdown that we've seen in the past. I don't think we're seeing a 77% drawdown. In general, every bear market has been shorter and shorter. The drawdowns have been less. So 77% down would put us around $27,000, $28,000 Bitcoin. I don't think we're getting there. If we did something like a 60% drawdown, that'd be right at $50,000. I mean, there was actually a lot of price action right around this $48,000, $50,000 mark. You can see we got rejected here, got rejected here during this bull run, and then held it as support here. So if things get really bad, I think we could see something around this. Otherwise, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like 74K. There's also been a lot of price action here. That would actually be a pretty good bear market. I think just 40% down. We've seen nearly 40% drawdowns during the bull run. This was like a 33%. I think this was a 31% drawdown back at the beginning of this year. So yeah, we could see something like that. Otherwise, maybe we see 60,000 smack dab in the middle, right? Basically a 50-55% drawdown, somewhere in here. Now, if this happens, I will dollar cost average heavier into Bitcoin, right? And I don't know how far we're going to go down. So I'm not going to try to time the exact bottom. I'm not trying to sell right now. My cost basis is somewhere in the $40,000 range on average, probably. So if I sold right now, I'd have to basically pay, based on my tax bracket, probably about 10% in taxes from the price I sell now. So I'd have to bank on Bitcoin falling down to 85,000. Then I have to try to rebuy like slightly below it, which I don't think is really worth it, especially when you consider that we might not be in a bear market. So I'm not trying to sell out. That's typically a bad idea. It's a bad idea if you try to time the market exactly, especially with crypto. It generally goes up and it goes up a lot. So I don't want to sell. And I'm very bullish on Bitcoin still over long term. I know that some people are pissed off because this bear market or this bull market wasn't exactly what they expected. But the fact is, if you dollar cost averaged here into Bitcoin, the best performing asset of all time, and you dollar cost average from peak to when we passed the peak, that's basically what I did. You'd still be up like 2-3x right now. So it's still a really good return for 2 or 3 years. I realize it's not as great as it has been in the past, but yeah, we'll see if we just rally back up because there are some bottom indicators. But anyways, I'll dollar cost average, right? I'm going to dollar cost average all the way down. I have a very small portion of my income going to Bitcoin, and then the rest is going into equities because I was underexposed to equities, and I've been dollar cost averaging a lot this year into equities. So I'll start buying more if we have more of a confirmed bear market. I wouldn't be surprised if we go into a bear market. I wouldn't be surprised if it's also shorter than what we've seen in the past. If I can find this chart, I wouldn't be surprised if we bottomed earlier because people don't want to buy until the bottom is in, right? That's what everyone's trying to put off buying, and they want to buy a little bit lower and a little bit lower. And then typically you can see in the last 3 cycles, we bottomed earlier and earlier and earlier. So I would not be surprised, especially because we topped a little bit earlier, if it kind of throws people off and maybe we bottom like halfway through next year, which would be crazy, right? That seems crazy because usually we have to wait a full year. But everything's being bought up because the Fed's printing more money. People are trying to find money, trying to find places to put money. So what if we bottomed like mid next year? The summer lull is the bottom. That would be interesting. So I'm going to accumulate more. I'm going to dynamic DCA down. Basically, as we fall down further, I'm going to allocate a larger and larger portion of my income. Most likely, I'll just allocate a portion of my income. I won't rotate capital from other assets into Bitcoin, but I'll dynamic DCA in and put more and more of my income into Bitcoin as we fall down. So I don't have an exact like, hey, if we fall down to $85,000, I'm going to put 5% of my income or 10 or 20 or anything like that. No, it'll be something that I decide on as we go along, but general framework is I will put more and more, and I'll get more aggressive as we fall down. Then leverage. What am I going to do with leverage? Because I do have some leverage positions that are down right now. Well, right now it's a small part of my portfolio. I've said that throughout this entire bull market. I think it's really great for a portfolio, and we've been able to take life-changing amounts of gains off the table, but also it's riskier. So right now I use a small portion of my portfolio. It's always under 10% of my portfolio. And I use leverage, right? Most of it's 3x, 5x leverage. Now, what am I going to do if we go into a bear market? Am I going to cut all my positions? No, honestly, I'm going to continue opening them all the way down. Again, I don't know where the exact bottom is. And I am too bullish on this market to just cut my losses and just sit out for 6 months, right? Like, I will continue to dollar cost average. And this is just like a really simple math because I have a trade that's that would get liquidated at 90 or right under 90,000. And let's say I have $3,000 in it. It's around there. This one trade is. So I have $3,000. I lose it at 90,000. Okay. I open up another 3x long position right at 90,000, let's say. That means that my liquidation point would be right around 60,000. Let's say we go under 60,000. So we go 55% down. Okay, I lost another 3K, but I open up another position right at that liquidation point. This 3K, let's say we go up to 180, maybe we bottom at 50K or something like that. That's a pretty good bear market. That would be $126,000 to $50,000. That'd be a 60% drawdown. It could be lower than that because my liquidation point would be at 40,000. If we do that, and then we go back up to 180, right? We get a 50% gain in the next bull run. That 3K turns into 27K. Now, of course, there are going to be some fees, but they would be fairly minimal on 3x leverage. I've done this long term. This 3K turns into 27K. And if we have a bigger bull market, or if we don't go quite as far down, right, it would turn into even more, right? So you can nail the bottom this way. Now, if you're really sharp, you might notice on that math there that if we just put, this $9,000 into Bitcoin at exactly 60K and it went up to 180, we'd also have $27,000. The problem is this way, I don't have to try to time the exact bottom, right? I'm not trying to time exactly 60,000. So if we went down to 61,000, I'd still have a trade open. And then if we go up, then I make a lot of money. If I wait for exactly 60,000, it's timing the market once again, and that just never ends well, right? So this allows me to have that kind of dollar cost average, but in a leverage setting. And also if we go above 180K, which I think is very conservative, if we're looking 4 years out for Bitcoin, saying that we'll only go up like 45% from one peak to the next. If we're more bullish, let's say it's 240 or let's say it's 300, right? And we have 3K in at $60,000. And we 5x, that's a 15x. So we would make much more money on leverage then. So it changes the dynamic more than just dollar cost averaging into spot. And I'll mostly stick to doing this with Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's easier to trade than a lot of altcoins because altcoins can see those 70% flushes like we saw a couple weeks ago. Then with altcoins, what am I going to do? Right? What am I going to do with altcoins? Oh, the other cool thing about leverage that I really like, I'm much more likely to take profits on leverage positions than I am on just spot Bitcoin, right? This is how I take profits throughout the bull run because generally I want to accumulate more Bitcoin, and leverage, I'm much more likely to take profits at certain levels and just to take some profits off the table. Altcoins are a very small part of my portfolio right now, 5 to 10%. I am not huge on altcoins right now. They underperformed this entire bull market. Of course, there have been maybe 5 altcoins that are large that have outperformed, but I generally just think they're a lot more risk and they're more effort. So I'd much rather put money into leveraged positions than into altcoins. That's just me. I might dollar cost average into some if they're at really good valuations, or if I get some kind of deal on them or something during the bear market. But generally, I'd rather stick to Bitcoin. And then what am I going to do with other assets, right? Maybe S&P 500, real estate. I've been dollar cost averaging heavily into them because honestly, there hasn't, like I said before, I haven't bought a lot of cryptos. There have been a couple that I've rotated capital into from maybe an ETH position. Maybe I want to buy a smaller cap or a mid cap or something like that. I might rotate a little bit of ETH to it. But generally, I just haven't put really any money into crypto in the last year and a half, except for this small DCA recently. And of course, I've been leverage trading. So I've been dollar cost averaging heavily into other assets like VOO, like Amazon, like Google, some of these other companies that have done really well. So I've been dollar cost averaging very heavily. I'll continue to dollar cost average in a bear market. If we go into a bear market for crypto, I'll continue to dollar cost average into these other assets because honestly, it just helps me psychologically having money somewhere else and not having all my wealth in crypto, especially because I have a job that's directly tied to crypto. Like if crypto goes up, typically I make more money. If crypto goes down significantly and we go into a bear market for a year, I make less money. So it is nice to have something that's uncorrelated to my income. So I'll continue to dollar cost average. Of course, like I only have so much money. So if I start putting a lot more into Bitcoin, then I'll obviously not be able to put as much into other assets. But it is nice to have something outside of crypto. Just again, psychologically, it's nice. But that's my plan. Let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. Let me know what you're going to do. There's still money to be made on leverage in a bear market. There's still money to be made dollar cost averaging if you're thinking long term, right? Don't put money into the market that you need next week, next month, next year. Put money in that maybe you want in 4 years plus, right? That's typically what people have done, and they've been able to make really good amounts of money. Let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. I really do appreciate it. Again, if you want to check out BY DeFi, there's a link to it underneath the video. We'll be running another campaign here soon. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.